everyone! Welcome again to my YouTube channel. So today, what we're going to talk about is traveling outside of the Philippines, especially those for the first timers. So if you're interested, then let's move on to the video. One tip is that you should definitely do online check-in. There's a special lane for those who did online check-in, and it's very short compared to those who will do their check-in at the airport. The line was super long. In my experience, the check-in counter for Qatar Airways actually opened very late, like an hour and a half later. So if may hinahabol kayong flight at that time, there's a possibility that you might have been like a bit delayed because late nilang inopen yung check-in counter. So upon check-in, there were a few things that they asked for since I traveled during the pandemic time. I actually have a list here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and read them to you para makahelp once you're gonna go ahead and travel. So the documents that I presented was a negative RT-PCR test. It needs to be from an accredited clinic, so I'll go ahead and post the link here. That's where you can see what accredited clinics they have with Qatar Airways. Second thing is they asked for the invitation letter from my partner, as well as the affidavit of support showing that he'll be the one to support me during my stay in Sweden. Next is my passport. Of course, they checked that. Next would be the web check-in email confirmation. So since you're in a separate lane for check-in, they're going to ask for that confirmation that was sent through your email. Alright, and then lastly, there are two more things. That's the Qatar Airways consent form, and then the Bureau of Immigration travel declaration form. By the way, usually before you go to immigration, you have to pay the travel tax. However, apparently on the ticket that I bought, it already included the travel tax, so I didn't need to go through that. But if on your ticket it didn't include it, then you still need to go to the travel tax. They have a desk that you can easily see. So you just have to go there, present your ticket, and they'll go ahead and look it up for you. Okay, and then now you go to the immigration. So we've already passed like the people who were asking for the passport, departure card, signed Bureau of Immigration consent form, and the boarding pass. So now it's the time that you will be interviewed. Fall in line and be interviewed by the immigration officer. So there are a few things that I presented, again, actually like a lot of things, and I'm going to list them down here and here if there's not enough space, and I'm also going to read them out to you. So of course, again, I presented my passport. They requested to see a return flight ticket. We also needed to buy a health and travel insurance with COVID-19 coverage. Next, I also presented a PDF or a printed PDF of compiled photos of me and my partner together. Next, we also I also presented my certificate of employment as well as my approved leave of absence. Next, we also presented my CFO temporary certificate. Now, I'd like to just stop there for a quick second because it seems to be like a controversial issue whether or not you should get the CFO. So most people will say, or like from the guidelines of CFO, it says that you don't need to get a CFO if you're only going to go on a tourist visa or a visit visa. But as a precaution, I think most of the people traveling, especially if it's to visit your partner, we got a CFO. So for the CFO, we had to register it online, so I'll put the link here. as well in the description box below. And there were a few things that we had to compile before we even had or got the CFO. We actually had to undergo a seminar as well. So I know it's not a requirement to get a CFO if you're only traveling for a visit visa or a type C visa, but it is actually really good to have so that you can present that you've already undergone the seminar. Okay, so next document that I presented. Okay, so the next document that I presented to the immigration officer was an affidavit of consent, parental consent to travel. So I'm not really too sure as to why this was requested. So this document I had because it was requested through the CFO. I'm already 22 years old, but still they ask for a parental consent even though I'm already above 18. So I guess you have the right to decline when they ask you for this, but I still presented it anyways because it's just good to have. And then after that, the last document was the invitation letter of my partner. So that's what I presented last to the immigration officer. So my experience with the first immigration officer, there are just a few things that he asked. Again, I'm just gonna list them here so that I can just read through them and you can read through on this side as well. So first thing, what's his nationality? How many times have we met in person? When am I going to return back in the Philippines? And do I have a CFO certificate? So those are the 4 questions that the first immigration officer asked. Like I said, the CFO certificate, that's not a requirement, but it's actually really nice to have because sometimes that's what the immigration officer asks for. Okay, and then once I answered all those questions truthfully, he asked me to remove my face mask and my face shield, and then he took my photo and did a stamp on my passport. I thought that was already done, but apparently not. There's going to be a second IO interview or immigration interview for another line. Okay, so for the second interview, again, I'm just gonna put in the questions they asked here. They actually asked a lot more questions compared to the first immigration officer. So first thing, they asked, why did I decide to travel amidst the current pandemic that we have? So of course I answered that truthfully. I said, we've been apart for 10 months. He can't enter here and I can enter there. So that's the only logical explanation in my head, and that's what I said. Next thing is he asked how old I am and how old he was. So we were both at the legal age, so there's no problem in that. He also asked what he does and how much does he earn. So I actually have printed documents of his payslips as a backup in case that it is asked for, and luckily enough that I did have it, so I presented that to the immigration officer. And then lastly, they asked if my parents allowed me to travel outside of the country. I'm really happy that I got the affidavit of consent to travel because I was able to present that, and after that the second immigration officer allowed me to pass, and now I'm on my way to the airport. So basically that is most of my experience. It was very smooth, I would say. I'm very lucky. I didn't have long interviews and I didn't get stuck on any of them. So for those who are still planning to travel, just make sure that you are confident and truthful with what you say. For any other questions, again, you know the drill. Just make sure to comment below if anything is not clear. I'll make sure to put in the links and like any other information below so that you can check it yourself. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching again my YouTube video. If you liked it and found it informative, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, goodbye.